Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you've all had a nice cup of tea and refreshed yourselves. Joining me now is Adam Pace, welcome. Adam, for anyone that doesn't know, is the former Chief Digital Officer at Omnicom Media Group, and he's currently working with Talon on all things digital, so thanks for coming along. I see you've put on media uniform for the day. Yep. Nice work. So we're going to have a little chat about all things out of home, digital and the future. And while we're chatting, again, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please tap in online or pipe up if you're in the audience. So I think we'll just get stuck straight in with your previous life. So could you tell us a little bit about what a Chief Digital Officer actually does at a large agency?
Yeah, sure. So I joined OMG in 2008, initially to sort of create a digital trading framework, so doing media deals with the likes of, back in the day, MySpace, Yahoo, AOL, Friends Reunited, these sort of guys. About 2009, I started getting interested in automated trading and platforms. I met the two businesses at the time who had propositions that were interesting for us then. One was called Invite Media, one was called Turn. We used the Invite Media platform to create what became known as our Programmatic trading team. Bought our first impression in April 2010. And then I grew that team to around about sort of 50 or 60 people, all at a central kind of level, at an OMG level. And then after that, we started looking at how we use that model to create other digital products and services. So how we would create a search team that could be used, shared across all four agencies. How we could set up an offshoring operation, how we could open a Manchester office. And basically looking at how we could create benefits for the four OMG agencies, but using the kind of central team and create new digital services and products so we can have to duplicate them 4 times in each agency. And then once they reach a certain scale, we would put those teams in the agencies because they were experts. So, you know, in the modern world, clients need to speak to technicians. So we kind of grew teams at the centre, then pushed them into the agencies. You know, we created a Google Analytics consultancy, some ad serving capabilities, and so on at the centre.
Cool. So there's obviously like a ton of ambition there at the beginning. Is that part of the reason that you've moved over to the out-of-home space? Is that?
Yeah, I think over time it became harder to kind of create stuff. You know, the ecosystem became more dominated by Google and Facebook. Google are much easier to work with in an entrepreneurial kind of angle in terms of building services on top of their products. But that's quite a crowded kind of marketplace now. Facebook less so. You know, we found Facebook difficult to create new services and products on. And then speaking to Talon, I think two things kind of resonate me when I was speaking to Talon, who I'd worked with in my OMG role for I think 7 or 8 years. So I knew them anyway. Two things kind of I thought were really interesting and kind of were going to open up the opportunity here. One of them was the fact that people are walking around with computers in their pockets now. You know, that is just super interesting in terms of the data you can collect and use. And then the other thing, which we kind of briefly touched on earlier in Mungo's presentation, the kind of rapid rise of digitalization of the kind of real estate. So when you've got real estate that you can serve multiple ads on, that kind of needs to be ad served. And then once you're ad serving media with data signals attached to it, that allows you to kind of create value for clients that, you know, you used to do this, now you do it like this, you've created some value here, and that's kind of what attracted me to Talon, really. Okay.
And so, rumour has it you've got a bit of a liking for a certain jeans brand from the UK.
Right.
And I was wondering if you were looking at a previous out-of-home campaign, what you would have done for that brand that you could now do better with the technology that's at your fingertips now.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing is the creative use of data. You know, when you're in board meetings, or when I've been to board meetings or speak to CEOs or senior planners about this, it's that kind of use of data up front, specifically kind of creating custom audiences for clients. Clients have always loved, that kind of creation of a custom audience that's specific to them. They are the people who do and might buy that client's product. So that's the first bit on the programmatic kind of value chain, the audience creation.
And is that part of the thing that you do with Ada?
Yes, that's via the sort of DMP. And then the kind of real agile kind of activation of, going live up to 24 hours, before, using the kind of data signals, complementing with the campaigns, using the audiences to complement other media channels. So I think that kind of switch to audience-based planning and buying is the golden nugget sort of thing. You then got things like kind of creative execution, optimization, cost per thousand trading, kind of algorithmic inventory selection based on what's available at the time rather than the format you would like. So it's quite a lot of new things, but I think the really exciting bit is the kind of use of data, at client level.
And you seem like you're mixing that across different sort of buying strategies. So are you combining, obviously you're a big out-of-home buyer, so I'm sort of assuming you're combining the traditional buys with classic inventory, paper and paste, and then layering stuff on top of that. How does that mix work for you guys?
Yeah, so it's interesting. This is kind of like year one, for Talon here. So we've kind of seen interesting adoption of the platform and the techniques across a range of clients. It feels a bit like, to me, how kind of VOD settled down for some clients, where you wouldn't replace your TV campaign with VOD, but you will supplement it with that. So if you run a TV campaign, and you're going to spend £1 million on a TV campaign, that doesn't guarantee you access to the Champions League or to any good films that are on, or Get Me Out of This Jungle, or whatever's on telly. But on your VOD, you can get in those sort of environments, and then you're reaching much lighter viewers and people who are harder to find and stuff. So you're kind of amplifying and kind of extending your reach of your standard campaign. Then we've got clients who just want to take advantage of the programmatic capabilities. Then we've got some sort of digital-only clients that want to track footfall and stuff like that. So I don't see it replacing the classic out-of-home, but it definitely complements it, and there's definitely times when you would do out-of-home doing this that you probably wouldn't be able to do out-of-home pre-programmatic.
Sure, makes sense. So I think Mungo touched on it earlier again with the trust in the audience data and how that enables you to do different things. And I was wondering whether that requires from a sort of a functional basis in your business, that people have to sell as much the data to their customers and build that trust in order to activate different types and styles of buying over, I want 300 of this type of billboard in this space.
So again, one of the sort of things that is, I don't know why I'm surprised by it really, because I've worked with Talon for, let's say, 7 or 8 years, but I was really kind of surprised about their data capabilities. It's kind of similar to how we worked at OMG with our analytics team in terms of analysing viewability and stuff like that. There's a lot of similarities, but actually in at home, it's a lot more complex. Kind of creating the kind of viewability, overlaying route with your own data, but creating the viewability in the Chrome so that people are seeing the ads and how they're seeing them. So Talon have really sort of strong data kind of capabilities, which they had before they had programmatic as well. So that's good. That was already in place, and actually the DMP is used by more clients than the DSP. The DMP is used for creating these audiences, so being able to talk about audiences in your planning cycle. But there's also used for measuring footfall and effectiveness and stuff like that as well. So there's kind of two different uses for it. So that's in place.
Cool.
That's good.
Yeah. You mentioned a DSP and a DMP. Obviously, you've got some brand names for those guys. But what an interesting thing that I've just picked up on is, for most people, a DSP is used solely for programmatic execution. And the Atlas program that you're talking about is an open direct based system. And I was wondering how you sort of feel that that term programmatic gets applied to different systems that maybe achieve different results, or maybe they achieve the same thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so yeah, that's true. It does. I mean, from 2010 onwards, I contributed to various different industry studies. IPA, IAB, that sort of thing. People wanted to track programmatic spend. Quite a lot of them fell apart halfway through because people couldn't agree on what programmatic was, and the same conversations that happened around that at home were happening about video 8-9 years ago, because a lot of the high quality video was bought programmatic direct. And so people would come. I remember one particular survey, I think it was an IAB one, so I came down and someone sat in my office and did a sort of survey on spends and clients and stuff like that for an hour or two, and then phoned me back 3 days later saying, Group M just told us that this is not programmatic. What you're saying is programmatic, and I was like, well, it is here. And it was a similar sort of thing. So I think the sort of programmatic kind of word, and programmatic only became a word or a term that was used 2, 3 or 4 years into this anyway, when it just needed some sort of moniker. It's used by different people to mean different things. But I think, so that's the kind of first thing in terms of the usage of the term and what it means. And it can mean different things to different people, but it actually always has, and different channels do programmatic direct as well. I think what's really interesting about Talon's way of doing this, and it's become apparent to me while working there, because we own the platforms and we build the platforms. Talon are a kind of large, multi-award-winning specialist. And again, it kind of like, when you're in an agency, I would think of myself as a digital specialist. But then digital covers such a huge raft of things in the agency now that you are still a bit of a generalist. But Talon it never really hit home to me until I went to work there. How into it they are, how into the detail. They work for some of the world's biggest advertisers. They've been doing it for a long time. They combined our home experience in that business is, hundreds and hundreds of years. And when they were taking their approach to building these platforms, they weren't trying to plug into any market, or they weren't trying to say, hey, there's some money over here or whatever. Their approach was, how can they improve what they do? A bit like our first kind of question. Does it enhance what they do? Because they can buy digital at home. They already had Ada, as a DMP. It was just like, can we activate better with Atlas? Will Atlas allow us, will this programmatic techniques allow us to do stuff, one we couldn't do before, or do what we do now and what we're going to do in the future in a slightly better way? And that they were very focused on the kind of value creation, what value is being created by the total systems. So they weren't like trying to plug into a programmatic marketplace, more like a media owner would, a programmatic demand. They were very focused on improving their capabilities and adding value for their customers, which is a really nice way to approach it.
Yeah, I guess we used to see, I suppose there were kind of special campaigns that did what you now do at scale for every advertiser that uses Atlas. So it was the interrogation of the data, the application, the choosing of the sites was all done manually, but they were special campaigns, and they're still special campaigns because they still achieve the same goals, but now you can do it more regularly. Is that the sort of general?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a real kind of desire to modernise how things are done. And the cost per thousand trading is a part of that. To get into audiences at cost per thousands of pricing that's comparable with TV and other channels. Because obviously we're all kind of entrepreneurial here, we all want to grow our kind of pot and grow the spends and grow revenues. But to do that, sometimes you have to talk a bit of someone else's language.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are now at the moment, I think. it's a case of being answering briefs from other people who they would normally speak to. And we see that across the business, like I said earlier, the briefs come from different parts of Talon's customer base. They don't all come from certain teams. And actually, in the big 6 agencies and in Talon's customers, they've got different structures anyway around who does what and who's the expert and who's the champion and stuff like that. So they tend to come from digital trading teams, planning teams, a mixture of briefs anyway.
Cool. So it's as much about moving the language on to be applicable to other channels, or is it?
Yeah, it's a balancing act on that, because I was just telling Julia earlier, I felt like towards my time at OMG, sort of digital media was sort of eating itself a bit. There were so many models, attribution models. The cookie data that we were using was so flawed, but everyone still had to use it because there was nothing else. So I think there's some good stuff about measurement, but there's some bad stuff that Out of Home doesn't want to get into on measurement as well. And I think a really good point was made earlier was route, how good route is, and how people should look at that and use it. Because in digital, built up around walled gardens, you're using the media owners' data, and because those are ecosystems that were created sort of 15 years ago, or 10 years ago in Facebook's case, no one really questions that anymore. They just use that data. Mm. It's not industry data. It's not third-party validated. And so I think you want to talk modern and be plugged into modern techniques and so on, but you don't want to take the bad things and that you don't need to take from digital, and there are plenty of those as well.
Sure. You talked about investing a lot of money in data, and obviously COVID's been blasting away for the last 12, 14 months. I was just wondering, do you think that's the investment in this data helped you to kind of weather the storm of planning during that period?
Well, to be blunt, I don't think it's helped Talon weather the storm, because the storm's been like force 10. Sort of day, right?
It's been pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's been brutal, right? It's been brutal, not just for Talon, but across lots of different businesses and industries, right? And, trying to run an out-of-home business when the Prime Minister telling everyone not to go out of your home is difficult, right? But what it has done, it's allowed us to really kind of focus our thinking on the product development. Mm. What we're trying to build and what the timelines are. Think about, again, kind of hone that conversation about the benefits to clients. That's one of the things I think gets lost a lot in media. Everything's got to start with the benefit to clients. So that's an important conversation that you need to be able to have in a relatively short period of time with lots of important clients. So I think what we're seeing now is, now that we're coming out of the lockdown, we're having lots of interesting conversations about Atlas and Ada, and they're certainly really useful things for us to base conversations about a resurgence on. And as well, I think the kind of Ada data and the agile activation, the creative optimization, plug into a kind of like a zeitgeist for creativity and intelligent use of data, which I think is the era that we're going to be into post-lockdown. So I think has it helped us weather the storm? It's helped us weather the storm in a way that we know we've got some really good stuff to work on and think about and talk about. So from like a morale perspective, yeah, it's helped us weather the storm. Financially, it hasn't helped us weather the storm, but I think Talon will recoup their investments here quite rapidly once we come back, and also the market forecasts for H2 are strong.
Great.
And, we're seeing that come through, and we're seeing it when we book media, and the demand the media owners are having and what's available and what's not. So it's brilliant, but it hasn't helped us weather the storm financially, but it has given us real optimism.
Great. That's something that we all need really at the moment. Yeah. So we've spoken about Talon in the UK, and Chloe mentioned that you made some different decisions about systems in different markets. So in the UK, you've obviously built your own. You have your ADA DMP, you have your DSP Atlas. In the US, you've chosen to partner with Hivestack as a DSP. And I was just wondering, what drove the decision between the two markets, and what do the two systems offer?
Yeah, the Hivestack deal gives us a partner to go into other markets with. I think in phase one of programmatic, sort of 2010, 2011, your tech partners were really good kind of entrepreneurial partners to go and help you get into other businesses, and even had ideas on helping you build your teams and how to set things up and stuff like that. So I think at the growth phase that Talon's in, where they're trying to expand into other markets, Hivestack could be a good partner for that. But then again, the UK market, aside from being like so super sophisticated and digital, has just got different dynamics in terms of efficiencies, value chains, and so on from the US, which is super fragmented. So that platform's capabilities will be super helpful for us in more fragmented markets. Mm-hmm. And the partnership will be good for us in terms of growing in other markets as well. But Talon is a UK business, like I said, with their experience they've got and their capabilities without programmatic, have a platform which they built specifically to enhance their capabilities for the UK. So it's kind of like, it's kind of win-win, I think. Yep. Both work in different scenarios.
Right systems for the right place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at AdTECH in general, right? If you look at AdTECH in general, again, go back to 2010 when there were 2 DSPs in the world. All the SSPs were kind of West Coast businesses. They were all owned by AOL, MSN, Yahoo, and so on. And that kind of ecosystem built up with American businesses that were really built for the North American market, but actually, because of the huge kind of level of supply of impressions in display, worked in the UK as well. I think, when I think back to my time at OMG, once we got into the second growth phase of programmatic, which was video, we had a video-specific DSP, and then Google made you use double-click for YouTube, so that was your only option. The third wave was kind of audio, the bit of growth was audio, so like Mungo mentioned earlier, DAX and Spotify. And the fourth kind of wave will be at home. And I think, when I think about that, I think there's 2 things in play here. There's the use of specialist technology, as opposed to kind of, West Coast kind of technology that works in the UK. But then I also think, when I look at other media channels, and I go back to the sophistication of the UK market, when I look at other media channels, and when you look at the broadcasters, look at global, all the best media owners in this country they now have access to developers, whether it's in Eastern Europe or India. They've all built platforms specific to how they want to trade. Again, with this idea of improving what you do, not plugging into supply and demand, but improving your business. So if I look at DAX, if I look at ITV's Planet V, if I look at the Ozone Project, they're all UK-based platforms that are for the UK, because the UK is a super sophisticated, consolidated market, and most of the best media planning and buying in the world, in my experience, kind of comes from the UK.
Amazing. We've talked a bit about the future, but I'm wondering whether you've got any ambitions and how you would, I know you've got ambitions to grow the pot, but how do you sort of intend to go about doing that?
Yeah, so initially, in the phase we're at the moment, it's a big education job in terms of the data-led work, the data-led planning and buying, the agile activation, the benefits for clients. So it's a big kind of education job for planners, agency leaders, clients, and so on. So that's the kind of first kind of layer, the base layer of that.
And is that education job across your staff, or is that with your customers, or is that across the board?
Yes, it's everyone. I mean, that's why we're here doing stuff like this, right? You know, Chloe's just done a programmatic week at Talon, so basically bringing everyone's kind of knowledge up, so we're educating our own business on it. We're also educating clients on it as much as we can. You know, we've got plans to do more stuff so that everyone can talk the language. And I think there's only a few things that you really need to know. It's like, you know, what's the benefit? You know, how much does it cost? What's the benefit? When should I use it? You know, there's not a huge amount of things you've got to teach everyone. I don't think you need to get into like big protocols and, you know, and stuff like that, and algorithms. You just need to explain to everyone what are the 4 or 5 key things, you know. So that's the first phase, and that's quite a lot of hard work. And, and like teaching your kids, it's repetition and hard work. But it's good fun because it's growing, you know, it's a great part of the business. I think my sort of then dream for this is that everybody within Talon, but also within our clients, will then know, they'll just see it straight away when it's the right thing to do. And in that phase, the main thing that's driving the business is the kind of the creativity and the use of data. So you mentioned about Atlas using the Open Direct kind of protocols, but we are developing RTB protocols, not because we kind of see a huge pot of inventory in SSPs that we want to plug into that we can't currently access, but more because I think those sort of strategies will unlock lots of creative opportunities, which kind of the guys were talking about earlier. So once you've got these, you know, and out of home is a brilliant creative industry. I forgot to mention that at the start, you know. One of the things that I thought would be great about working at Talon is, you know, they win those awards for creativity. You know, you don't win many awards for creativity in terms of banners or videos, online videos or social ads, but everybody's can reel off lots of posters that they've seen, and, you know, and I think about the Dracula campaign, the Dracula ads that were in every award, you know, and stuff like that. So unlocking kind of creativity, using data, I think there'll be a real wave of kind of innovation in this industry once we kind of all get to grips with what the opportunity is and the benefit to clients. So
not just having creative, but also having creative use of data.
Yeah, that is like a sort of, for most clients, is a sort of sweet spot, especially when they're using their own data and first-party data about, you know, actually, okay, everyone gets hay fever on this day, but actually, would you serve a different ad here to here, or, you know, and that's that kind of creativity around. People tend to think of creativity, as making the ads or drawing the ads or whatever, but actually, there's a whole world of creativity that can be unlocked by using data that can give you ideas and stuff like that. So when you get those two working together, my view is that's what will really kind of create a sea change in how this works.
Unfortunately, we're running down on time. So thank you very much for sharing some insights from Talon and where you see the future. It's been good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.